The Author's Switch.
Hello, and welcome to The Author Switch, the podcast for new and aspiring authors that helps them turn on the author switch to success in their mind. I am Carma Spence, the author of the best-selling book, Public Speaking Superpowers, and the upcoming, forthcoming, hopefully best-selling book, Home Sweet Homepage, which will be released on May 18th. It's the second edition. And today, in episode 12, I am interviewing Mark MacDonald, who is a church brand strategist at beknownforsomething.com. He is also the author of the book Be Known for Something, which is also a bestseller. This interview was pre-recorded, so in a moment you will notice a wardrobe change. He shared some very interesting information about his author journey, as well as some unique information of how authors can be known for something in their brand, whether they're known for their genre or their voice. I hope you enjoy it. And welcome to the Author's Switch, Mark.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I am really excited to talk with you about this topic of yours. You are the author of Be Known for Something, and I know that there are authors who it's very easy that they are known for. So there are authors who only write mysteries, and they know they're known for writing this kind of mystery. But there are also authors who write in multiple genres, sometimes under different pseudonyms and things like that. So this is something I want to touch on because most of the people who probably listen to this podcast are new and aspiring authors. They haven't quite figured it all out yet. So I brought you on to sort of lay it down. Here's how you get known for something. But before we go into that, just tell us a little bit about how you came on your author's journey to write Be Known for Something.
Well, I continuously say that all of my English literature, like any of my professors and teachers, are rolling over in their graves. Like every time that I say that I'm a best-selling author, I mean, I kind of fell into it. It was really, I was a speaker first, and the more that I spoke about something, the more people said, "Do you have any of this in writing?" And I thought, well, no, because I really, so I was senior creative director for one of Eastern Canada's largest ad agencies, and in the creative direction world, you either come up through the design side or you come up through the writing side. There might be some people listening to this that think, wow, I'd love to write for a creative agency or a branding agency. And there are paths to get to the top of the agency world, the creative director. And I was a graphic designer by trade. So as I designed my way, I became production manager, and then I became designer, and then art director, and then got to be creative director. But I always was paired with a writer,
Mhm.
similar to Don Draper, and in Mad Men, he always, like, there's always a partnering between the visual and the writing side.
Right.
Well, all of a sudden I moved from Canada to North Carolina, set up my own agency, and the first thing that somebody asked me was, could you write the headlines? And I thought, oh, I only have a writer to do that. And I thought, okay, if I just put that hat on, and I started thinking, so what would that writer do? Maybe I can try it. Well, I tried it, and I sold it for a few $1,000s. And it was just like, wow, well, maybe I could do the writing side. So then the next time that somebody asked me, I thought, yeah, I can do that. And then a magazine called me and said, we heard you at speaking about communications, and we were wondering, would you write an article about it? And I said, sure. I can do that. How long do you want? And like I really broke it down in kind of the ad genre where it's like, how long's the headline? How do you need a subhead? Do you need bullet points? Like, so I went through it all, and they said, well, here's what we typically do as a, for an article. Well, fast forward a few years, and I just wrote my 800th magazine article that was published. So
Wow.
put the math to all of that. I mean, I'm writing an article all the time. I pretty much every week I get an article published, and then from that, somebody said, because now I can crank out like, you tell me you need an article by 3 o'clock, it would be done by, in a 2 to 3 hours. And and somebody said, I mean, do you have a book? Because I would love to see more of this. And I said, I don't have a book, but maybe I should write one. And the more I
Right.
talked about it, the more people said, yeah, you should write one. And then I sat down, and I realized that a long form book is totally different than writing an
Yes.
article.
Oh, yes. A very different beast.
And it really is about focusing. But the problem is that an article really focuses. So it's like, you have one topic, here's a solution. Well, the problem with a book is that you end up with, okay, so I'm going to have one topic for the book, and then I've got to have many ideas underneath of it, which, I mean, that created a conundrum in my mind. And it took
Mhm.
about a year to write the book, but for some reason, mainly because I think I had already developed an audience. By the time the book came out, it became a bestseller.
That is key. Yes, definitely. Definitely. So your book's called Be Known for Something. How does that message apply to you as an author, and how might it apply to people listening to this podcast?
Well, I'm fascinated by people who would write in different genres. That, because I really do focus, on more of um, the nonfiction side, helping somebody business to business or business to consumer. But uh, it's interesting because we all know those authors that we say, oh, I love how they bring this to life. And they're
Mhm.
not talking about a particular book, they're talking about all of their books. And really what it comes down to is finding that style that is useful, but then also being able to, based upon what, the path that you have had along the way, like maybe, and I don't even know why this came to mind, but maybe you've had abusive relationships, so
Mhm.
that all of your books have a weird, relationship issue that happens in the book, but it might turn into a comedy at the end, or could turn into a mystery, or like it's just bringing what you do well to life in each one of your books that you're
Mm.
writing.
So it's like some people might be known for the genre they're in, but others would be known for their voice.
Yeah, no, that's really well said. The foreword to my book was written by Gary Chapman, who wrote The Five Love Languages.
Yes.
And and it was interesting because I sat down with him because I'd never written a long form book. And I think somebody just told me that he sold 30 million copies of that book.
And they're
And
still selling.
and they're still selling, they're still flying off the shelves. In fact, the scary thing is after people listen to this podcast, they'll probably go out and buy his book rather than my book.
Yeah.
But I sat down with him and I just said, so tell me, Gary, like, how did you write your book, and how can I sell a few million copies? And if anyone is listening and you have expectations of selling millions, it probably won't happen.
Most authors sell about 200 copies in their lifetime.
Yeah, I think I heard the statistic: a half of 1% sell less than 1,000.
Right. Yeah.
So, and the thing is that he said when he wrote his original Five Love Language book, he never knew that it was going to be popular at all, which is kind of the way, like when you talk about anybody in celebrity, sometimes, you know, a celebrity becomes known for one of the roles that they play, but other times it is the genre that they play in. Um,
Right.
and and I think that when you're setting out to write your book, I mean, I'll always go back to audience. So you've got to figure, okay, so this is meaningful to me. I would like to write a book about this, or I'd like to put myself into this book. But you have to start thinking, so who's going to read this book, and is it
Mm,
a big enough group? Sometimes it's just a nuance of, because the more you pinpoint and the more you focus, the easier it is to write to them.
yeah.
And if I think about, okay, I'm thinking I want to write to a communications director who doesn't have a lot of time, then all of my articles or my books are all about, so let me just cut to the chase and give you the quick facts or the instant solutions. Or so I'm always talking their solutions, but I have to kind of understand their pain along the way. So as soon as you get to a point where you know, okay, so this is the book that I want to write to, think about the audience, and then really get to a point where you fall in love with that audience, fall in love with the individual person. And we, in the marketing world, we call it focus groups. Set up some informal focus groups. That's a good excuse for going to Starbucks and being able to write it off. Like,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
get to a point where you're talking to the people who would typically write or read your book. And anytime that somebody, says, so what's your biggest tip for writing, my biggest tip is pretend like you have that one person, what we call persona, that person in front of you, and instead of them reading the book, you're writing it to them like it's a personal letter. and
Exactly.
and
As
if
in
you
fact,
can get that.
when I work with authors, that's often like before you even write your outline, you need to think about who's going to read this book. And that's true whether you write only one type of book or you write different types of book.
And
I
you
mean, I
might, one of the things that you become known for might be the audience that you write for. I know that after I graduated from college, I roomed with a guy for 2 or 3 years, and all he just loved reading Louis L'Amour books.
yes.
And like he loved that genre. And then he found another author who wrote in that genre, and all of a sudden he just, like, he would just talk about it, and he loved the way that the stories unfolded. And maybe you become known for the style of book or the subject matter. Like, you've just got to figure out, so what is your thing that you
Yeah.
can become known for? And many people get to their end of their lives, and this is going to sound really morbid, but let me just tell you a little story about Mark MacDonald. Mark MacDonald was a singer, and in my community, when I was senior creative director for the agency, next door was the funeral home, and the funeral home asked me to sing often. So I became kind of the funeral singer. And
Instead of the wedding singer, you're the funeral singer.
exactly, there is a difference. There
I'm
are
sure.
much happier people at a wedding. And so in the
Exactly.
funerals, I kept hearing people say, you know what, this person, and they would describe the person and say, you know what, I don't even know whether that person knew this before they died. And what I realized through all of that is, like, what if we could decide what we want to be known for and eulogize for at your funeral, and then set it into place so that you can actually create a path to that. And
Yeah.
that's where it's that strategic mentality of, okay, I want to be known for this. Okay, well, look at your resume. What's missing to get you there? And then start thinking, how can I either do something so I educate myself, or can I take a course, or like start making the path towards what you want to be known for.
That's a great idea. It's like write your eulogy now and then work at becoming that person.
And if you need a funeral singer, just give me a call.
Sounds good. That sounds like a movie. It's a sequel.
That's right. That's right. And what's interesting is that in some sense, like, when you think about a speaker in front of an audience, they have to connect with that audience. As a writer, you might say, there is no way I would ever stand in front of a large group of people and talk to them. But that's what you, in your mind, you have to think, okay, so what are they thinking right now? And
Mhm.
how do I pivot towards what they want, and start writing that in the same way that you outline things. And I certainly hope you're outlining things if you're writing. You need to know where you're headed to. There were many times that as I wrote my book, I was wandering. It's like, okay, so where I need to land this chapter, but
Mhm.
I didn't know where to land it until I realized what the next chapter was going to be. And sometimes, unlike life, where I've oftentimes thought, oh, I just wish I knew what the next chapter was.
Mhm.
We just came through 2020, and what a year, right?
Yeah,
But if you know that, okay, well, 2021 is going to offer these as solutions, then it's easier to pivot from one thing to another when you know where you're headed to. And in some sense, as you're outlining everything that you do, you have to outline your life as well. It's like, what do I want to be known for at the end of my life? And then what are those individual steps that I need to get there?
exactly. So what is one thing you wish you had known before you started writing your book that you would like to help others not have to learn it the hard way like you did? Attention authors, speakers, and coaches. Does your website attract nothing but crickets and tire kickers? Then you might be committing one of the 5 deadly mistakes of homepage design. Home Sweet Homepage, How to Fix the 5 Deadly Mistakes that authors, speakers, and coaches make with their website's homepage, will help you clear the crickets, repel the tire kickers, and start attracting the right kind of traffic that will convert to readers, clients, and speaking opportunities. Go to bookmarketingclub.com/homepage book right now and pre-order your copy for only 99 cents and receive $47 worth of free gifts. This offer ends as soon as the book launches on May 18th. So go now and pre-order yours by May 17th. What is one thing you wish you had known before you started writing your book that you would like to help others not have to learn it the hard way like you did?
Well, I think I my book was almost twice as long because I never focused entirely on one audience. I tried to have kind of three audiences in mind, where I talked to the individual, and I talked to a business owner, and I talked to, because I work a lot with churches, so I talked a lot to pastors and ministry leaders. And uh, and I struggled. Like, there were so many times that I was thinking, okay, so, oh yeah, I forgot to talk to this person in this chapter, and I forgot. My editor and publisher, when I submitted and they started going through it, they're like, oh well, this is really good stuff. But who is your audience? And I quickly told them my three audiences, and they told me, yeah, you really need to focus. Like, don't think about one person sitting in front of you, or sorry, three people sitting in front of you, think about the one person. And I mean, this is what I talk and write about all the time. And it's
The
just
book's
really,
about.
you know, it's pinpointing an audience. And the more you can pinpoint them, the better, so that you create, just Google personas, and there's lots of forms that you can fill out for personas. Like if you're thinking I'm writing for women, well, that's
Too
pretty
big.
broad.
Yeah,
So it's like, what kind of women? Are you talking midlife women? Are you talking young women? All of a sudden your mind starts thinking, oh, yeah, the book would look totally different based upon their age. So it's like all the things that they can't control, like the demographics. Do they live in the Midwest? Do they live in California? Do they live in the East Coast? Maybe they live at the beach. And it's like, so start thinking, okay, so how can I way pinpoint focus, like laser focus in on a group, and topics just start, flooding to mind of the ways that you can do a chapter, or the way that you can introduce a theme that would interest that person. and
exactly.
and I think that's what we just need to have a little bit more focus in our lives.
One audience per book.
Yes. Or you can do a primary audience and then have a secondary, but never let the secondary have the first voice. So,
Right.
somebody else might fall in love with the book, but just don't concentrate on that person.
Exactly. And that happens. I mean, it's like my primary audience tends to be women, but I have had male clients. I'll help them too, but that's not what my marketing message goes out to, or who I think about when I create my marketing messages. So
Yeah,
yeah,
and that was the other thing probably that I wish I knew more about, how much promotion I was going to have to do. And if you don't have a core group that you can go out and talk to, do whatever it takes now while you're writing your book to develop that group. And that's where social media can really, really be your friend. Set up a group on Facebook or a page on Facebook. Start seeing if you can attract an audience. If you can't attract an audience on social media right now based upon keywords and the understanding of that group, they probably won't read your book, unfortunately.
yeah, yeah. Very true. Well, we're running out of time here, so I want to make sure that people know where they can find you and copies of your book.
Well, I would love for them. My day job, be known for something.com. You can go there and find my book if you'd like to buy it through my publisher, through my website, or else you can go onto Amazon, which became an Amazon bestseller. It's written for the church audience. However, just substitute every time that I talk to church, just think about the group that you've been given. And every time I talk to pastors or ministry leaders, just think about, as an author, how do I do this? There's an awful lot of information. And then it gets really highly practical near the end of the book, where we talk about websites and social media and fonts, what kind of colors we should associate with what we do. And that'll
Right.
help you certainly with your cover design and all of your promotion that happens after that. And then also on all the social media, Mark Mac 1023, Mark Mac 1023, that's my birthday. And I have a Pinterest group and LinkedIn and Instagram, Facebook, and I'm also on Medium.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your particular wisdom with the authors listening to this podcast.
Well, I wish them all the best. It's a lot of work and it can be fulfilling. And if you have a big enough audience, it can be very lucrative as well.
Exactly.
The Author Switch at authorswitch.com.